There's an ancient story of a student who went to the master and said, I pray, I study, I meditate, do my daily rituals and even fast a little. I live in peace with others. Teacher, what more can I do? The master rose, lifted his hands, and stretched his fingers out towards the heavens, when suddenly they became like 10 lamps of fire. And then he said, you can become all flame. Welcome. I am Jareth Tempest, mystic magician, psychonaut, astronaut, hierophant, all-around seeker of truth, author, full-time weirdo, and host of this show where we talk about mysticism, the mystical journey, and all that's magical in the universe. Everything from spirits to spirituality, while I take you on a magical mystery tour through the inner worlds, and hopefully inspire you to take that next step so that you can become all flame. Alright, so thank you for listening once again and for coming back. This week we're going to continue talking about the Holy Guardian Angel. So let's just jump right in. I'm excited. This is one of my favorite topics. You know, last week we talked about the movie A Dark Song, and then I kind of talked about the Abramelin, and we kind of talked about a little bit about what the Holy Guardian Angel is. So this week, that's what I want to focus on. I want to talk about what it actually is, and I'm going to base this on both my own experience and with what we did an interview with the archangel Metatron, and Metatron told us quite a bit about what the Holy Guardian Angel is. You do kind of need to have a little bit of idea of what the higher self is, which we talked about in another episode, but just to kind of recap, the higher self is something that it's like when you're born, your first lifetime, a tiny little seed is planted. It is your connection to divinity. And as you live your life, that seed grows. And the more that you care about spiritual things and do spiritual practices and stuff, the more that spirit will grow, or that seed will grow into your higher self. And this is the part of you that will reincarnate over multiple lifetimes. So when we talked to Metatron, it was one of the first questions I asked, and I said, here, I'm just going to read it to you. And I said, occultists often talk about the Holy Guardian Angel. There's a lot of curiosity as what that actually is. Can you tell us what the Holy Guardian Angel is? And Metatron replies, when a new soul is created, they're born with a seed that will grow into their higher self. At the same time, there's another seed that comes into being that is a pure spark of the divine. As the seed grows, the holy seed grows as well. Which is not to say that it comes into being an infant, it is still an angelic being. And so what he's saying there is that, like, at the same time that your higher self has that seed planted, you also have this other seed that's this pure spark of the divine, and it is an angelic being that, whereas your higher self has to develop slowly and kind of go through an infancy stage along with you, the angel is not born an infant, but it needs to still be empowered as you grow in that spiritual journey. So then I would ask, well, what is its purpose? And Metatron would say, to guide, to watch over, to nurture, to guide towards the ultimate goal, which is perfect union between the human seed and the holy seed, which has now, of course, grown strong and ancient. And so I would say, so this growth of the two takes place over many lifetimes? And Metatron would reply, indeed. And it is the goal to unite these two? Yes. You've spoken of Raziel and Lucifer, about Jesus, about the ascended beings who are a direct conduit to the divine. That's how that happened. So I would ask, is there a practice that we can do to help us communicate with that holy spark, that holy guardian angel? Metatron, yes, there are ways. The best way is to simply spend time to reflect upon, and kind of trail off. And I say, to get to know yourself. And Metatron would say, indeed, just to continually explore. So contemplation and spiritual practices and getting to know yourself. And Metatron would say yes. and it becomes like an energetic channel between you and your higher self. And the wider the channel, the more the information flows back and forth. And the more, it kind of trails off, your holy guardian angel will contact your higher self. They will work together. So you know yourself and know your higher self. And then you can communicate directly with your holy guardian angel and work towards unity. So then I'd ask, so your goal then should be to learn to try to communicate with your holy guardian angel, and that will teach us how to grow and nurture the higher self and help us reach this union. And Metatron say, easier said than done. I know, and there are many paths toward that, but yes, essentially, your higher self and your holy guardian angel are in contact and communicate and help to guide you. So the more in touch you are with your higher self, the more you will be able to communicate and learn from your holy guardian angel. So we have that seed, those two seeds within us, the higher self and the holy guardian angel. And one is absolutely us, that higher self. That is truly who we are. And especially as we go through, multiple lifetimes. Whereas that holy guardian angel, it is a separate entity with us, and you can think of it as being kind of entangled with your higher self, and it's and it reincarnates with us, so we continue to have the same angel lifetime after lifetime. And the goal is to bring union to these two, and what mystics have called the divine marriage. And this is why often you will see your holy guardian angel as the opposite gender. Not always. This is not a hard and fast rule, but many people do see their holy guardian angel as the opposite gender, which can make it get confused with the, the anima and animus in Jungian psychology. But this is really so much bigger. This isn't just a part of your personality. This is a much bigger thing. So let's not make that confusion. And so, he brings up Jesus and other ascended beings who are humans who earlier we'd heard, like Raziel had told us, that their higher self had developed to such a degree that this gave voice to the divine, and they were able to speak the words of the highest level of divinity. Metatron here is adding this extra bit to it, where it's like this is done by that union between the higher self and the holy guardian angel. Then that is what will open up that connection, because that you can think of the higher self as the part of you that's growing towards divinity, and you can almost look at the holy guardian angel as the part of divinity that's growing towards you. And you want to combine those two, and it creates that channel, that conduit of pure divine power, and information can come through. And this is where you start getting these what you seem like downloads is what we call them. And most of it is for personal gnosis and your own personal growth and things that you need for your journey. But sometimes it's things for others. And so in those, that's what we got from Metatron as far as like what it is. And that's kind of the big broad strokes of what the holy guardian angel is this divine entity that develops with you, guides you. But that doesn't really make it any easier to understand, or to really even understand what it is that you're dealing with, or what it's like to deal with it. So I thought what I would do is I would tell my story of how me and my holy guardian angel have developed over the years. It's not your typical story of a Western magician, because my story has never been exactly typical of most people. But it'll still give you an idea of what I've been through, because it's really the only way that I can't tell you what someone else has been through. And so I think I'd mentioned in my last episode that a Franciscan had told me about, you need to learn the name of your holy guardian angel, and if you want to do that, then ask it before you go to sleep, and then the next day you're going to wake up and you'll have a name in your head. Around that same time, there was another person that I was friends with named Alex, and he had, and this is all within the Catholic Church, he had a little book on the holy guardian angel Well, it was just the guardian angel. They don't use the word holy guardian angel in the Catholic Church. That's a little add-on that causes confusion. The Catholic idea of the holy guardian angel and the Western magical idea of a holy guardian angel are not the same thing. Like what I just described to you is not what the church would say your guardian angel is. The church simply says your guardian angel is an angel that's assigned to you to intercede for you. They pray for you all the time, and they look out for you and stuff like that. And that's really all it is. Now, this guy had a book that made it seem like there was much more to it, and that your guardian angel was your connection with divinity. We didn't understand that to the degree of which I've just kind of expressed to you. We just, but it really, for whatever reason, struck a chord with him. And he would he would preach at us. You gotta pray with your guardian angel. This is it. This is the key. You gotta do it. And so it kind of impressed it on me that this is something I needed to do. And so I included a prayer, prayers to my guardian angel on a regular basis. And I can't say that it seemed like anything really happened. Instead, what seemed to happen through that and all of the other things I was doing, because remember when I was in prison where this was happening, I lived as much like a monk as I could. I prayed a lot, and I did a lot of study and meditation and things. And so there were a lot of different practices I was doing. So I can't necessarily point to any one thing and say, this is the thing that did it. But as I'm doing all these different practices, I am feeling as though I'm growing closer to divinity. And I feel that I can't hear God's voice. I'm not going to sit here and say that that's what I was doing. And even at the end, I was like, but I could get an impression, of what I felt like God wanted me to do in different situations. And I was definitely learning to depend on God. And the thing is, though, and I would later learn this, and I absolutely did not know this at the time, it isn't God. Whenever you feel like God or the universe is speaking to you, it isn't God or the universe. It's your holy guardian angel. Your holy guardian angel is your voice of divinity within you. And so if you hear something that you've always associated as being, God or the universe or whatever, then that's probably already your angel that you're hearing. Now, that isn't to say that every spirit you hear is your holy guardian angel. If you're working with a deity of something and you hear that deity speak to you, then that's that deity. But if something is coming to you that feels like it's beyond a simple deity, that's what I'm talking about. It's that highest, that source of creation. I became known as the guy that God spoke to within, prison, and not in a way of like, I wasn't walking around like I'm the prophet or whatever or anything like that. It was just people knew that I had a deeper connection and would come to me, and I ended up teaching meditation classes and stuff like that. And that was really good. And it helped me, and it helped a lot of other people. But as I'm going through this, I'm like, I hear this voice, and it's like, you need to be a priest. And I'm like, I don't want to be a priest. I like sex, and I'm not having any now, but I would like to be having it again one day. And it's like, no, you need to be a priest. And I'm like, no, I don't want to be a priest. That's not for me. And so I had a dream where I was holding onto this blanket, and someone was trying to take the blanket from me. And that blanket was like, finally like, look at the blanket. And I'm looked at it, and it's like all rotten, covered in maggots, and it was gross and rotting and decay. And I let the blanket go. And when I wake up, I knew that was one of those dreams that meant something, and that blanket was my dreams, the dreams that I wanted to do with my life. And and it was my angel that was trying to take the blanket from me and like, give up your dream and listen to me and follow what I say, and things will be better. And so finally I was like, fine, I'll be a priest, but you've got to send me a sign. And there was already a time when I'd prayed this prayer or whatever. And when I got done, two little birds came and sat on my window. Well, since then, I told my friend and this other guy, and he was like, "Oh, it's so great. I want birds." And he was like, "Oh, it makes such a big deal about birds." So that it was in my head that birds were a good sign. And so I was like, if you really want me to be a priest, then send me a sign, send me a bird. And so I want to say it was the next day. It might have been 2 days later, but a bird, and I got moved. I didn't have a window anymore. I was now in just a building that had doors, but then there was multiple levels of doors between those doors before we finally got to my pod. And we had no windows that would open. So I thought I was being clever. I'm like, "Hi, you can't get me. No birds are going to get in here." Well, a bird got in, and it landed on the little divider wall of my bunk. And the dude next to me had a towel, and he tried to swat it. So it flies off, and it flies all around the tank, and it comes back and it lands there again. And he swats it, and it flies off. I'd like to say it came in 3 times, because that would just be too good, but it didn't. It only came the twice. And it didn't sink in at first, but eventually I was like, "Oh shit, he sent me a bird. Fuck. All right, fine, I'll be a priest." And it was shortly after that when the Franciscans started teaching, and they started a program where we could join the Franciscan order. And so I joined it's a several year process. And I went through that thinking the priest had made it quite clear that there was no way I could become an actual priest, not with my record and stuff. And, it just, he's like, "That's just not a possibility." So I was like, okay, well, and then the Franciscans showed up. I was like, well, maybe this is what he was talking about. Even then I recognized that they can't, it's very difficult for them to put brand new ideas in your head. You have to work with what's already there. And I knew what being a priest was. It would have been a lot harder for them to say Franciscan monk. That kind of would have come out of nowhere. And it's a lot harder for that kind of thing to get into your head. And so I kind of rolled with it. I was like, okay, well, this must be what they meant. And so then I did that. And part of the process was, and this is going to sound crazy, but they taught us how to do automatic writing. It was part of learning to speak to the God within you by using this automatic writing. So we're going to talk about that and come back to that as the practical aspect of today's episode. So yeah, I kind of lived that way for the rest of my time. And then I went through the dark night of the soul and things got bad. And when I got out, I almost immediately met who would become my wife. And so the whole priest thing kind of got put on the back burner. And my whole spiritual life kind of got put on the back burner during that dark night. It was a really rough time, and it lasted about 7 years. And it really only ended when I discovered magic. I think that was what it was waiting on. And when I discovered practical magic and started involved in that, it kind of re-woke everything up. So long story short, hearing about this thing called the Holy Guardian Angel, and I had never really stopped talking to that voice that I had assumed was God. But then I also had that name for my guardian angel. And, I would talk to both of them, and they did sound similar. And we used to argue. I remember one time I was still in prison, and I was arguing. This guy, man, there was this dude I hated so much. And he was very gay. Decided he was going to be straight, and somehow he got himself a girlfriend, like almost overnight. And a woman who would write him letters and stuff. And it was just like, and I had wanted that so bad. And I was like, oh, how can you give him this? And you haven't, and like, you hear about like Jacob wrestling with the angel. Well, maybe they really did wrestle physically, but there's a process that you can go through where you like really just argue with your holy guardian angel or the spirit or whatever you want to call it, man. I was so angry that he would get a girlfriend and I wouldn't. And then like 2 weeks later, I get a letter out of the blue from this woman. And so, yeah, it's amazing what you can accomplish with working with this, working with this entity. And so, anyway, yeah. So when I got out, I got married to another woman. It wasn't her. And, but I kept that, I still had that relationship, and it was different. Whenever you're going through that dark night, everything is dry. You don't get as clear a conversation. That's part of the process, is they put you down so you walk on your own, and then they don't talk to you as much. That way you can grow and develop on your own, and you learn, a mature spiritual life as opposed to being coddled. But yeah, when I started hearing about the Holy Guardian Angel and stuff, and I was like, so, are you my Holy Guardian Angel? And it would respond, I'm your Guardian Angel. Yeah, but are you my Holy Guardian Angel? Well, I'm an angel. I'm holy. Yeah, but are you the holy? I was having trouble getting it to understand that, I was trying to differentiate that difference between the Catholic idea of what the Holy Guardian Angel was and like the esoteric idea of what the Holy Guardian Angel was. And it wouldn't give me that answer. And finally, I just had to recognize that, of course, this is what this is. And it took a lot of study. There's so much bad information out there about this topic, which is one reason I wanted to talk about this. Now, why I talk about it so much is because people want to make this so hard. They make it harder than it needs to be. And it doesn't have to be that hard. This does not need to be a difficult process. We just need to be able to learn to shut up and listen more than anything else. And so it was a really big deal when I finally realized what it was. And, around that time, that's when, a lot of things just started happening, but a lot of things had happened really quick anyway. And I remember I was talking to this spirit that had kind of just popped up, and it's like, well, are you a friend? Are you friendly? And it's like, oh yeah, like you have way more friends than you realize. And I kind of knew what he meant, that he was talking about, because me and my angel were already so close that it had already laid a path before me, I guess you could say, and had made friends for me. So a lot of the work is already done because my angel has done that. And that's one of the things your angel will do. So let's start talking now about like what it does. And that is one of the main things that it does, is it intercedes with you and other spirits. And that way, people are always asking me, how can you be sure that you have contacted this right spirit? And it's like, well, I know because my Holy Guardian Angel has made sure for me. It's already it's laid that groundwork, and it's made sure that this isn't a parasite or a trickster or something. I know that because like the only times I've ever really met those things wasn't because I was out looking for something and ran into it. It's because they floated along in my path and I noticed them and would try to talk to them, and they would, try to run their little con on me. You can always tell a parasite because they're so needy, and they're just, if you can get past some of it, they're just really pathetic creatures that just want attention, but they want all of your attention and will ruin your life by stealing all of your attention and energy. So just, don't want to do anything with those. So yeah, so that's the main thing. One of the main things it does. The other thing it does is it protects you from attack, and it does this in multiple ways. One, in ways that you don't even expect. And one of the main things it can do is help you understand who you are. And you're like, well, how is that protection? And it's like, if you know who you are and you are deeply grounded in who you are and where you stand with your angel and with divinity, it is very hard to move you. It is very hard for anything to get to you. And so, just by developing that relationship with divinity, which is your HGA, then that alone will protect you, on top of it actually protecting you. It'll do its job as a guardian angel and protect you. You will always be there to comfort you, give you advice, and help you make decisions. You will get these, what we think of as downloads, the information, or revelations is another way you can put it. You'll just suddenly know something that you didn't know before. And I'm not going to say you don't put some effort into it. You'll be trying to figure something out, and then all of a sudden, it's almost like, clack, clack, clack. All of a sudden, all of these things just fall into place, and it's like, oh, I know. And it's usually not like kind of like, oh, I intellectually understand this now. It's like, oh, I know deep down, I get it. And that's where you can really grow as a magician in developing your own practice and your own gnosis and stuff. And then the other thing that'll help you do is figure out what you need to do and help you understand your purpose within not just this one lifetime, but your overall purpose here on this planet. We'll talk about purpose at another time, because that's a complicated subject in and of itself. But your angel will help you figure out what you're supposed to do. And I just want to point this out, that they will lie to you. It might not be just a complete lie, but like, I'm still not a Catholic priest. That was my misunderstanding of what they meant as priests, but they put that carrot in front of me so I would take that next step I needed to take. And they will tell you whatever you need to hear to get you to take that step. It's like in the Matrix when the Oracle confirms for Neo that he's not the one, even though he is the one, because he needed to hear he wasn't the one to help him understand that he was the one. It's just like that. They will lie to you right to your face if it's what you need to hear. So be prepared for that. But at the same time, what I do for a living now is I initiate people, and I give people a deeper connection to different spirits, which is a form of priest. And I know that later on, as I continue to grow in my spiritual journey, I will become more and more a priest. That is the role that has been laid before me. It's just not in the way I was expecting it to happen. So it was a lie, but it was not a lie. It's interesting how it works like that. So yeah, be prepared for things like that. And I just want to reiterate that you don't usually have this great vision, or it doesn't appear to you in the flesh. It's a voice in your head. It's a feeling. It can sometimes be your conscience. It's the little voice in there telling you, don't do that, do this, maybe you should forgive that person. It's usually a moral type voice, but not one that's trying to make you feel guilty, but one that's trying to help you to grow. And then, and its job is to help guide you towards that divine marriage, that mystical union between you and your higher self. So what you want to do, once you've made that connection, then what I do is I invoke, and I don't mean invocation as though I call to it. I mean it as though I bring it within me, even though it's already in me. I consciously bring the spirit in me as though it's possessing me. And I can usually, when I do that, like I'll hear a different voice almost kind of take over for a minute, and it'll be like, it's almost like a prayer, but not. And it thinks so fast, and like my reading speed will increase and my vision will sharpen. It's a really interesting thing. I just have to remember to do it, and it helps me with my energy levels and all kinds of stuff. It's really something you should try to do. Once you've made that connection, then you start invoking. And Crowley even said this: invoke often. So you invoke it, and you invoke it until it becomes more of a part of you, and a constant part of you. There's not just you and them, like you become them. And I haven't made that complete union yet, but I'm working towards it. And I've made I recently made a huge step towards it to the point where now my HGA has always looked the same, and now she looks very different, and our relationship has suddenly taken on a different level. There's just a lot of different steps on the journey that you'll take, and your relationship will reach these different levels and stuff. It's fascinating how it works, and in a lot of ways, it's very much like a human relationship, only it's not with a human; it's with your personified piece of divinity that's a part of you. Yeah, that's a lot, I think, to kind of hit you with. So before we get into the practical thing I wanted to talk about, another little bit of information or news about the Holy Guardian Angel. My wife recently decided that she needed to make contact, and she had never done that. Now, she is quite advanced, spiritually speaking, but this is just something that she just never bothered to do because she'd always heard it was difficult, and she wasn't interested in it was just never the thing that she was interested in trying to do. But I knew that she was already very close. I put her under a hypnosis and did a particular guided meditation, you might call it, and she made contact with her Holy Guardian Angel, and it was a very beautiful thing to be able to see. I'm not going to get into much of the details of it, but I will. I'm going to make a recording of that and make that available on my YouTube channel. I'm not going to try to charge for it. I can't guarantee that it will work. The reason it worked for her was that she was already close and just needed that extra bit of help to kind of suppress her personality and then help her reach a point where she would be able to make that connection. So I'm going to put that on my YouTube channel. So keep an eye open for that, for when that pops up. Hopefully then that can help you. I mean, and again, like, I'm not going to charge for it because I can't make any guarantees. I can't make any guarantees that it's gonna work. But I'm sure it'll help some people though. And that's enough. So keep an eye open for that. So now let's talk about the practical stuff. And what I'm going to do is teach you a little bit about automatic writing. So what you need to do, you can do this along with me. You can pause this until you're ready or whatever. But all you need is a piece of paper and a writing utensil, a pen or a pencil. If you can get like not a ballpoint pen, but like, something that flows a little faster. You don't want to be struggling to write. So try to get a fast writing pen, just to get a nicer pen is all I'm saying. But you can definitely do this with anything. You can do it with a crayon. It doesn't really matter. And you want to sit down and you want to kind of silence your mind. You might want to put on some quiet music, nothing with lyrics, but something like classical piece or something of that nature, ambient music, and just try to quiet your mind a little, and then just address your guardian angel and say, look, Holy Guardian Angel, I just want to ask you some questions. You might want to already have the questions ready, or you could just ask then. I guess it doesn't really matter, but at least have an idea of what you're going to ask so that you don't need to sit there and struggle trying to write the question or think of the question. But ask your question, and be ready with your pen on the paper, ready to go. And as soon as you ask your question, start writing the answer. Don't think about it. Just write the answer to the question. The first thing that pops in your head, it might start even before you're done asking the question. As soon as you think about the question, you will start getting an answer. Just start writing it down. Doesn't matter if it makes sense. Not yet. And you're going to do this for several questions. You want to have at least 3 questions ready. And just but be ready. Ask your question. Just write it. Bam. Those first thoughts, the very first thing that pops in your head, regardless of how ridiculous it sounds. More often than not, it's going to feel like an answer that you already know. And that's fine. That's exactly what it is. You do already know. You're just articulating it for the first time, maybe. and it's just helping you to articulate it. And this is, there's more advanced techniques that you can do, but this is what they taught us, and man, it works. And all you got to do is try it. Just trust me. Just try it. Just get a piece of paper and just, ask your question, and then bam, just write it out. And, it may sound like gibberish, and it may, or sometimes like it might sound like something out of the King James Bible. It's really kind of fascinating, the different voices it takes. Everyone has a different, like they all have a different voice. Often it's your voice, but sometimes it's the voice that you expect something spiritual to sound like, which is why it kind of sounds like the King James for a lot of people. Because of growing up and hearing that type of language when they were in church. It doesn't matter how much you might hate the church now. Some part of you now associates that with the way something spiritual sounds, which I'm not saying it's going to be that. I'm just that's a possibility. But yeah, it's those first thoughts. And this is really the key to all spirit communication. Whenever you're talking to any spirit, those first thoughts, and just run with those first thoughts. And the more that you practice doing this, the better it's going to be. And the more clear your answers will be. And the more that you learn to trust those answers, the greater your adventure is going to be. It's going to take you to some wild places. You may make decisions based on these things that you never would have before. And your life might go off in a completely different way, and it's going to be amazing. And this is a good next step. So yeah, give that a try, and let me know how it goes. I really can't wait to hear. I already saw that at least one person tried the to get the name, and they got a name. And so yeah, if you have that name, you want to incorporate that into this, and like, hey, Victor, Holy Guardian Angel Victor, and then ask your question, and then just bam, write that answer. And this is the kind of thing that's going to radically change your life and make things for the better and put you on that real spiritual journey. And yeah, I'm excited to hear from you guys. I'm excited to help you guys do this. And then keep an eye open for your on that YouTube thing for the meditation that will hopefully help some of you find the knowledge and conversation of your Holy Guardian Angel. It'll all be coming pretty soon. So you want to keep hearing more from me, subscribe or like or whatever it is on whatever it is that you do on your particular podcaster or YouTube or whatever. And I will be back next week, and I'm not sure what we're going to talk about. I think maybe we'll talk about your purpose in life and in your lives, plural, and how that operates and how that works, because that's kind of a fun, complicated little topic. Oh yeah, that'll be good. Yeah, that's what we'll talk about. We're going to talk about your purpose in life next week. All right. Well, it's been fun again. Thank you so much for spending time with me. And I think that we are definitely on our way to becoming all flame.